Hey.
Hey.
So
Hi.
we didn't really prepare because we're in the midst of post-production, so we're just gonna we have an idea of how things we want to share with you, but if you guys have specific questions, we could start there or however you want to do it.
Would you do it again? Like, is it a process that you
Oh, absolutely, and we're still in the midst of it, right? So we can't really speak to that because we haven't faced launch and marketing and all that kind of stuff. And then there's also reportage. You have to. It's a year down the road. You have to have tracked your impacts and all that kind of thing.
but it's something that you would say, look, if you ever got the chance to do it.
Yes, it's a terrific opportunity.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's so hard, as you guys all know, it's hard to get funding for something that's 75 to 90 minutes or whatever you're going to do. I'd say keep it closer to 75. We did that on purpose. You're paying for every page in a sense. Our movie's going to be about 82 minutes or 80 minutes. But yeah, definitely.
How realistic was your plan? Did it work out the way you kind of hoped it would?
Yeah,
the
but
money
we
you had
were
and all that stuff?
extremely ambitious, and there wasn't really a backup plan if weather didn't go in our favor and all that kind of thing. So we were very lucky.
Mhm.
So I would probably the first tip would be choose a realistic script. We got lucky and and managed to get everything we needed in the can, but in the time that we had to do it. But probably it would have been smarter to do something with a smaller cast and not as many locations and sort of the typical. If it's a micro budget, keep the bar low. That said, how often do you win the lottery to make a film? So it's just sort of
You find ways to make
what
it
stance you want to take.
Yeah, I guess
roll the dice and take a risk, or or just do it the safe way.
That's it.
The safe way is easier, and definitely we shot for 13 days, and it was a grind. That was definitely one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. I've done some hard things, so just for energy and spirit and keeping all those details, and one of the problems is you don't have enough money to hire enough people to actually do the job, right? So you're doing 5 or 10 jobs, and then you're expecting each person that you've hired to do 2 to 3 jobs. So that's
How many people did you guys have on your crew?
On the crew, it was around
14?
14. There was 15 some days. We had kind of an extra person once in a while. And we also tried to, 2 things. Talking about the schedule, we originally budgeted for, you go online and you go, how long does it take to do a feature? And some people say, a lot of indie features that have a bit of money in the States are going, we shot it 20 days. And so we're like, okay, can we do it in 17? My original budget was for 17 days, and then I said, I think we can do better. And I went to 15. And then I talked to some people. Jeremy was one of them. He said, oh, I was shooting this many pages a day, which you guys must have been racing. But I said, well, I think we can get it lower. And I considered 13 or 12. And when we got to 13, I thought, now that we've done it, we were able to do that. But 12 would have been impossible. So our script is 80 pages long. So however many pages a day that is. Some days we get locked into a location like the comic book store for 2 days, so we could leave the lights overnight, and you knew you're going to make good time the next day if you didn't make your day the day before. Other days, one day we went to a beach, and the whole day was about getting out there and making sure we got our day because we couldn't go back another day. We scheduled a few contingency days. We actually had 13 days, but we contracted everybody to 15 and said we will pay you for those days if we indeed have to use them for half one of those days or for 1.5 or whatever.
But thank goodness that didn't happen because other things arose that ate the contingency. So
Yeah, there's always
definitely
a piece of
need
prizes.
a nice pad for the unknowns.
So do you have, did you do 10%?
I think
No.
in the budget it was actually lower than that, but in some ways, well, once that contingency's gone, then it goes to the producer's fee or something, which that will happen a little bit probably in this project, but we're fighting to try to, protect our time and our efforts and stuff, but we also believe heavily in the project, so we'll do.
I wouldn't
what we have to
go, I think that probably Telefilm would notice and go, what are they thinking if it was less than 5%?
Mm-hmm. And can I ask you, because this year I was given a number for marketing, and they want to see 20,000 for marketing. If it's going to be less than that, they want you to explain exactly how you're going to get $20,000 worth of marketing for $5,000. So did you guys
We
have a
gave-
marketing budget?
Yeah, we did. We had a pretty ample one, I guess, considering how little money we had. Like you can go up to 250,000, but we tried so hard to find additional funding and we didn't get any. So we just got the flat 120 from telephones. So our marketing budget is, well, we're hoping it'll be 10,000. So,
What did you originally put in there? Did you put in 10?
In the budget.
Yeah.
I actually think we
we
put,
put 6 because we knew that we could then go to Innovation PEI and get another 4.
Oh, that's good.
So that's one thing you do have at your disposal, like whatever you have for marketing, there is a program that you can go to Innovation PEI and get 40% top up. Or they'll, you know,
Is that the only additional source of
of cash,
funding?
our company invested
Yeah.
as well.
Were there any other options?
You could go to PEICA and get up to 5, but we've tapped that out with the Queen of the Crows and Lucky 7 and all the other shorts. Plus
And
we
there's
felt-
no federal? There's no federal.
You can't get any Cavco or anything like that because it's Cavco is only private money, you know. So if you're getting provincial money and federal money, there's no private money, so you only get a tax credit on private money. So if you could find someone who, if you do we did a little Kickstarter, so but the headache you go through to get
Yeah.
the tax credit on your Kickstarter is not worth it.
yeah,
Did you feel pressured after you got the green light to find additional funding? Because there probably wasn't a lot of time, right?
no, pressure's
We
probably not the
constantly
right word.
worked.
The word was, we felt hungry for doing
Yeah.
it because we had this ammo. And then,
And we were
We
working
talked to a lot of people
before,
who-
before we even got the
decision
yes.
makers in the province.
We were looking to find additional funding and make the case with the province that, you know, hey, we don't have a tax credit, we don't have any film programs, we have the potential, we've got the track record of, you know, we just, our short film went to Cannes and is on short film face off, wouldn't this be the time to, you know, we're gonna hire everything local and, you know, support all this local business and the rural economy and
It's
you
gonna
know,
be obviously
support youth
shot
and all the
in
things that
the
you talk
PEI.
about, wouldn't this be the time? Anyway, they did listen to us, but we never managed to get any money.
I've got lots of questions here.
Yeah, fire away, I mean,
So,
like,
just
Need a
back-
rich uncle or something.
Back to the
Where's your notepad? You're gonna remember.
yeah, I'm kind of kicking myself for that because I never.
well,
want
it's gonna be
paper?
archived forever and ever.
Oh, that's
It's
right.
the internet.
It's on the interweb.
It's archived?
Back to the crew. In retrospect, now that you've got all the footage in the can, you've probably gone through it. Do you feel that do you feel like that the project might have been better, or you would have got more scenes or better performances if you had more time? And second part of that question is, do you think there's any advantage to having a smaller crew and adding more days?
Yes, I would say so, because well, I mean, not about the smaller crew. I mean, the only place we could have made our crew slightly smaller would be, we hired Justin to be our data tech, and we could have, there was times he was sitting twiddling his thumbs, he could have been doing assistant editing. So that's a regret we have, that we, you know, because you have that skill, like we could have had you doing work that we're now paying for, so we double paid for that in a way. But, you know, like, because we had not a lot of give, when things aren't going as you'd hoped, you know, like in our case, we're doing comedy, and, you know, if the props weren't working to make the gag work, or, you know, the weather's not just exactly what you need for the mood or whatever, things like that, it would have been nice to have. But we very quickly encountered issues with our, you know, with like union changes to our casting, and then E&O stuff being complicated, and legals entering into it, so that we, like,
Now you're in
our
production.
contingency was, we were watching it go very early on, so we knew that we didn't really have the opportunity to go those extra 2 days. So I didn't have the choice as a director to go, you know what, that prop doesn't work, and so instead of me solving the problem on the fly, let's just go get the prop that works, you know, so.
But about the crew, like when we had all these discussions, and I'm always thinking, I'm so cheap, but I wanted, get good results, but I'm going, how can we combine positions? And that's important to consider. Like our second group was also doing our EPK and swinging off and taking pictures and video and behind the scenes stuff, and that worked out really well. But
And then, of course, our DOP was also a camera operator, so.
we shot with two
That was
cameras, so
double.
he was our,
Oh, you did 2 camera shoot, right?
he was our
Okay.
first camera. And with comedy, or our project, I highly recommend that. I mean, now I'm learning to multicam edit, and that's fine. I hadn't really done that, and it's just a small curve there, but I'm onto this now. But the thing is, with the crew, I was like going, well, could we get by with one grip? Could we get by with this person sharing this? And we combined as much as I feel we could have, but when I look at most days, all the heavy lifting and moving around these grips had to do and how hard everybody was working, I'm not sure about your project, Adam, but like how we could have done it with a smaller crew. I don't know how much smaller of a crew you're thinking. And then the bigger thing, one of the big things that's going to eat your money the most, nearly, I think, is the wages. And I love to, we're not paying union scale, but I love to pay people to be in projects like this, and you feel proud about that, but you wanted to keep your days as few as they can be. Like, it's a payoff. If you've got a smaller crew, then you've got less people you're feeding for a longer number of days and all that. Maybe that might work for you if you can get your crew small enough. I'd be wary of, on this project, I wouldn't have, I don't know if you're going, I want to have a crew that's three or four people.
I think
You
the
know a bit
answer
about our
is
movie.
it
We couldn't
depends
have
on
done
the
that.
project.
I don't feel we've done that.
Like it depends on, are you doing a documentary? Maybe you could say, let's have more time, less people. But you're right. We couldn't, and we put pressure. We felt bad that we had expectations of people. Well, the truth was they probably should have, there should be like 2 people on the sound team, not 1. And so I think we shaved it as tight as we could without on the flip side, we did take really good care of people with food. So we had Robert Pendergast who did all our food. Everyone got fed breakfast, lunch, and dinner if we went late enough. There would be dinner when you'd come back when you were done. Like, so you're even fed after we wrapped, because we just found
Which was
you're
every
so busy,
11
you're
of
so
the 13 days.
exhausted.
Yeah.
You can just go get your meal. You can talk about the problems of the day or what the plan is for tomorrow, and it's just worth the money. And it makes it so good for morale that it's worth it.
Well,
It's
they're
not
gonna
getting
be
extra
working for
money.
you the next day as well, so
Exactly. Like,
save some time.
so they don't have to go home and deal with, I don't have groceries, they can just like relax
Makes
and
sense,
come back
yeah.
fresh.
Us too, right? We're working hard all day. I'm like a golfer running around as a producer and doing different things. I can't remember what I did in the production, but I was there all
Yeah,
the
so
time.
probably a lot of like seasoned producers would be like, you're crazy, look at this huge line item that you don't have to, like you could be saving, like hundreds at least, but it was so worth it, I think.
Yeah, and then when we're tired at the end of the day, like I said, we get a meal. We don't have to go home and like make a meal ourselves. Like it was such a good
Yeah, so you
decision.
could just be talking about plans and. So let's talk about the submission then. If you, do you have any other pressing?
I got a couple, but they
Okay,
came
throw them
out.
out.
This one's for you, regarding your vision leading up to production. You have your script, and you've got it all figured out in your head, and then you go and you venture out into a 13-day shooting schedule, which is amazing that you guys accomplished it. But how did that affect some of the decisions you saw in your head versus what you ended up with?
Well, there's
I'm kind of like the
yeah,
ratio,
there's a lot of dreams you have,
Mhm.
especially because I was co-writer as well, right? So if you've written it, then you have extra
Yeah.
desire as the director that it's going to go this way, and then of course, there's so many factors that don't come together, or things that you have to be very fluid. But I'd say that we did surprisingly well. I think we have a high ratio of what we were hoping for, and then most of the things would be this time frame isn't going to work to shoot this scene, so I'm just changing it into a montage, or most of the time it was based on time that you'd have to change, or if we're honest, the moods of people. Moods of how people are doing, you have to keep the psychology of the whole team, everyone, a certain amount of happy. No one's ever going to be totally happy all the time, but
Bipolar Jeff Wheaton, I get it.
no, making sure that the actors feel safe and aren't getting cold and all that kind
Right.
of stuff sort of changed things sometimes, where I just make a decision being like, I don't want to abuse this duck. So I'm happy with what we got from that duck, and I'm going to figure something out in post, you know. So I'm not a megalomaniacal director who can just abuse people, and that's probably a shortfall, because I think we get like Terrence Malick's movies are great, but like talk to anybody who worked on it and they were abused. So we're not good at that. We're too nice.
I'm going to jump in this is a comment I think you'll agree with, but not having directed it is that we knew early on, like I'm a big fan, I know you're a big fan of this, man, but like moving camera.
Yeah.
But we looked at this and we went, especially like maybe, I think you're thinking maybe a thriller or drama, or maybe that's a spoiler, but ours, with comedy, I went, well, it's all going to be in the performances, and when you do watch a lot of even like old comedies or new comedies, especially old ones, but even the new ones, like the camera's not, it's all about the funny lines and the acting, and so we're just like, you know what, there might be like gentle on the sticks, but like really we're just shooting in sticks. And they did handheld a bit, but they were on sticks a lot, way less handheld than, for instance, you guys did on Just Passing Through, but like setting up dollies, things I've done in the past with sketch and stuff, like we spent so much time doing that. It's very time consuming. I look at the couple shots we did occasionally that way. I love them. They're fun, some of them, but we just didn't have time. We had to sort of
It
go,
was a decision we made at the beginning.
there's not enough money
This is-
to get into that.
yeah.
For us, we didn't feel there was.
Yeah, that's just something I'm dealing with, is that I've got all these really intense, like Stanley Kubrick type shots that, you know, would really add so much, but I'm thinking about a schedule, and like a half a day would be allotted just to get one shot.
Yeah.
When I think, like, I know how much time it's gonna take to set up a dolly, and
I think
Yeah.
you should pick and choose, but you know your script better than I do. Like, to get into a whole lot of extra days just to get the fancy, like besides the dolly and the crane shots and those types of things, the other thing was like, where am I heading with this? Help me out. A brain fart. Oh, what we shot on. Like, you know, originally we thought, hey, all this money, let's shoot on 4K. Well, you know, after having done the research, and also, you know, I sort of wanted to edit what I was used to, but I could have learned something new. But just in terms of workflow and also extra costs and drives and all that stuff, I'm not going to say it would have been a nightmare, but at this budget, if you can't get more money, for us anyway, we're really glad we didn't. We shot on a Sony F55, two of them. We used this setting that's kind of only a few of the Sony cameras have, and it's this new internal 4K setting which has the pixel dimensions of 4K, but it compresses it. So the files aren't too much bigger than like a 2K file. So I was surprised, I was shocked in the end how I actually didn't need quite as many drives as I thought. But the footage looks pretty amazing, and they're going to be able to color correct it in 4K at Postman, and then give us like a 2K export for the theatrical, and like you know, a 1920 1081 for TV.
Mhm.
But those are the decisions, you know, you have to make. Like that was a big thing. What did we shoot on? And I think when we submitted, we said, did we tell them, or we thought we would shoot? Did we know that then? Okay, we did.
I think maybe at the submission point we just said the F3, because that's what IMAC had.
Yeah, and we thought we
And we
would pair
figured,
that.
we'll source
here.
another
And
one.
did you guys see that as like a selling point for the application? And did Telefilm acknowledge that at all? Is that stuff important to them?
I don't know that it was. I think especially with the comedy, like we didn't have to submit a script the year we applied, and we're really glad we did, because we kind of got a big win that some people read it, but we thought the script was in pretty good shape. But
So
I
what
think
he's
it also
saying is
shows
we
that-
submitted a script even though it wasn't asked of us.
now this year they're requesting that. Or
Yeah,
we
they
believe
need a
they're
script
going
this
to.
year.
So we had that ready because we had submitted the year before, and we learned a lot from submitting the year before and not getting put through, and we changed some things. We revised the script a bit, certainly, but we certainly made our video pitch way more dynamic and better, and we recut our trailer. We kind of recut what we shot before and changed it and made it much better.
I don't get the impression that Telefilm is like fixated on what are the projects that have a red, you know, like more they're looking at who's an emerging filmmaker who has a good idea that can access a market in like a genre, a niche of people directly digitally. That's what it's about.
Especially at
But
this level.
just to get back to what
For
you
this project.
your project,
Right.
I think what I would do if I were you is I would look into a Mobi And I'd love it if IMAC would look into a MOBI, because that would change everything for all of us. But if you could get like if they, I think they're like 15,000 for a top level one. So renting one for a few days can't be that out of reach.
Yeah.
And that is just like a something that can make it so that you can do all those moves without it being very
Stabilizer.
complicated.
Yeah, apparently very easy to use.
And you can rig it, attach it on cars, and you know, it's like it smooths everything. So it's just, it takes away the need for a dolly or a jib,
Right.
and you can just get that fluidity that your project asks for.
And there's no doubt that type of stuff can make a project if it's where you properly executed, make it look slicker.
Now we're not far enough along to know, but maybe our choices we're going to look at and go, oh my god, it's so static in the world that is so moving. Like maybe all the other, Microbudget that are coming through are all using mobiles.
I just saw, what's that called? Moonrise Kingdom?
Mhm.
That was all static shots.
Yeah, that's true.
And it was awesome. And I was
Yeah.
going, oh my god, these are all just not moving and wide and not like 1,000, like not microscopic depth of field and all this stuff.
Yeah.
It's
kind of refreshing.
Just works.
Right? Because
It felt old.
Yeah, like
It felt old, but I think that's what he was going
looking
for,
for,
right?
yeah.
So, yeah.
And everything's so depth and fieldy these days.
Yeah.
that, like, oh, the nose is out of focus here and in focus there. And
Yeah.
yeah.
It's feeling really digital to me now when they go extreme with that. Like it seems like you watch some of these movies you like, and like they were trying to do those things, but you really couldn't get what you get now. It's kind of like this is in focus, this is out of focus, this is. So people like it, but
Well, you can do it now just in post.
Right.
Yeah.
yes, right.
So let's talk about the submission process, because that's the first hurdle, right? Like you have to figure out, okay, well, I guess the first hurdle is like, what is the creative content? And then how does the creative content inform your marketing plan? Because marketing is going to be a heavy stress
At
this
least
year,
50%.
even heavier than it was. Like, I think maybe one of the reasons why we were selected was that we had a very clear marketing plan and we laid it out in the video pitch. We just like, bam, bam, this is what we're going to do, this is what we're going to do, this is what we're going to do. So I think we came across as looking like they know what they want to do because they've got a prepared script and they know how they're going to do it. So, I think that's a big part of it is a jury is fielding so much information. So as soon as when you're on a jury, as soon as you find a project that has a murky area, you toss it aside because you gotta sift through so much information. So it's really important when you're submitting that you really comb through what they're asking for, and then you execute your submission process to show that you're totally listened.
They also want innovative marketing angles. So you guys had really interesting, like going to those HalCon and the Comic Cons and all that. It's a really interesting approach and hits your market, right?
It's
Where-
organic to the project.
But she said this over and over. It's like we don't want people to say, oh, it's going to hit the film circuits. The film festival circuits. Do not put that in your application.
Well, we didn't put that. We addressed it. We said,
Don't make it the
this
only
is
thing.
what we're
Don't make
doing
it the only
as
thing, 'cause
our
the-
premiere. This is we're going to premiere this way in order to try to get a little buzz. But that's just to help buzz, and then the way we're going to find our people is very specific. Kind of thing. So I think that if you look at your creative tells you how to create your marketing strategy. Like if it's a documentary about people who wrestle, then like you can find that vertical and where are they and where are they communicating digitally and how can you get in there kind of thing. So.
And you this year knew. I talked to her pre-Christmas, and the guidelines were supposed to come out then, but they're still not out. And she said Monday. And I asked her if anything had changed from the time that we'd spoken, and she wasn't really clear. So the last time I talked to her, the marketing plan was important, but also they are going to ask for a marketing budget outside of the production budget. So they want to see that where that money's going to go.
Yeah.
So that I think the thing is that a lot of people over the past 2 years have had these marketing plans, and then they make their film and then they don't do it, and they want to make sure that they're gonna do it. So that was one.
And we definitely had that. A detailed aspect of our budget was like exactly like this is the social media side of the marketing budget was actually broken down. Like this is
Right.
A domain for 3 years, give me a pro account for 3
so-
years, all that stuff.
If you can if you have those details in your budget, then it just sort of affirms to them of like, okay, these people have thought this through and they have a plan that they can execute. Then, like I think it's important to think about a jury and what their process is. So make sure that you really are clear about when your pitch is like just so broad strokes, doesn't have to be super detailed, but just like get the information out there so that they don't doubt in any way that you might not know what you're doing.
Yeah, and that's the same for your synopsis or like any sort of short pitch in text. Like, really take the time to
Yeah.
make those
Make it
those good.
readable. Lots
I
of
think the
space.
first
And
time
how
ever-
long was it? How long was did you guys do an outline, a synopsis? Like, what did you do in lieu of, you had a script?
Yeah.
But
We
what
didn't
did you
know if they'd
do-
read, so we didn't assume that.
Yeah, so what did you do as far as story to get the story across to the jury?
Whatever they requested, was
Yeah.
it?
Was
I'm
it
trying to
5
recall.
pages or?
It was.
No, it wasn't even that.
It might have been like a 2-page treatment and a paragraph synopsis. Maybe the year
Okay.
we did ours. Plus, we gave our script, and I think we also gave some little teaser log line under the title or
Okay.
something.
And
which
then
they
you only
might
have
asked
5
for.
minutes max for the video pitch, so that's tough because you've got, like, if you're trying to convey your genre, your story, your, casting ideas, your marketing plan, it's a lot to chunk in. So we had to, we
Good.
we
You gonna tell
could have outtakes of our taping of that.
Oh, they're
It'd be
so
its
funny.
own DVD
Yeah.
because it took us a long time because Jason can edit. We really made sure that was as good as we can make it, which took a long time.
But I think our first year out, when we weren't chosen because there was a better project than the go, but also one thing was our video pitch was very weak, and we rushed that. We did it at the very last second.
Yeah.
And so, our world of the movie, it's going to seem like longer. You're there a lot, but really we shot for 2 full days at the comic store, Lightning Bolt Comics. So we went down there and we did our video pitch down there. We redid it down there. We scripted it. We cut it. We tried to say less, like at once. Like we just kind of went, we'll wing it, and there won't be too much editing here. And what a mistake. So, we had sound bites and we'd say our sections and make sure we knew what we wanted to say. And we just, it came together a lot more quickly that way. It just looked dynamic in the background. Like, Anyway, I
And
just
that's
thought so
important.
much about our
It
first one.
conveyed information without
Yeah.
having to say anything. It
Yeah.
showed like, look, we've got this, and look how good it looks. Like this is what the world will look like.
Yeah, we'll be shooting here, and then we just popped into it.
Also consider that like maybe a jury is going to start by watching your video pitch. So we had worked on everything else, the trailer, we fixated on it, and then like the putting together everything they had asked for, and then time's ticking, and then we're like trying to tape this video pitch under pressure, and that was a big mistake. That was the year we didn't get it. So reverse it. Think that don't worry about your trailer so much because everyone understands you don't have the money yet. Worry about your video pitch and make that really snazzy. Because they might watch that and then go, I'm not even going to bother to read all this other stuff that you put together if that doesn't impress them. I don't know how it all works, but
Yeah, I'd like to think they look at everything you're taking the time to supply them with, but you know what?
Nobody
For
thinks
sure,
it's
they're
good.
going to watch a video pitch. I'm sure. Like, there's no way they want to see who you are. They want to see if you're, confident or you've got, your story and what you're trying to do. The scripts, I think it's great they're asking for scripts because it's going to make everybody more informed about their story. Some people are like, oh, I'm going to write that now, but you'll know more coming into getting the rest of your stuff ready. I hope they read it, but for sure they're going to look at
They
video
won't be
pitches.
reading them this year. They won't. It's only if, in the event that they have issues between
right.
projects,
Okay.
that they will use that as the tiebreaker. That's what I was told.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Something to keep in mind is that your project has to come through an IMAC jury first,
Yeah.
and then it'll get submitted to Telefilm's jury. So that process really helped us. Like the IMAC jury gave us feedback that we then listened to and absorbed, some things we ignored, but you know, like you get good notes, and then you actually have a little time, you know, like maybe 2 weeks to a month or something, depending on how the deadlines are going to work, but to actually take the notes from the first jury and go, oh, okay, yeah, I think they're right about that, and make some little shifts. So if your script, just get your script done, and then if you while you're waiting, you can be working on it and fixing it, and then you'll get notes back from the jury, and maybe someone in the IMAC jury might read your script, you never know. So. Okay, so submission, and then budget is a big part of the submission. So we've talked about how important the marketing budget is, but I would say that's a really important place. Like we took a lot of time to do a lot of research and find the best deal, and you can actually you'd be surprised how sometimes sourcing things off island is cheaper than trying to do it here. Or if you go to a big production house and ask for it's going to be for a micro budget. Do you have a deal for micro budget stuff? And they do. They're friendly. So ask for deals.
There's also the $1,000 Whites prize that has gone from a prize to a filmmaker to being part of the micro budget should it be picked. So you can put that as an extra
in your budget
income.
That you have $1,000.
Yeah.
So your budget was 120 grand?
Yeah.
that day.
Well, no, I mean we raised some in kind. Our company invested, and I don't think we included that innovation thing because we haven't actually gotten them to say yes to
So
that
the
yet.
original budget that you submitted was for 120 grand?
Well, no, it's higher with our in-kind and what our company put in. It was
That's
around
145
146 or something like that, 143, somewhere in there. So, I mean, probably, who knows why we're chosen, but probably other provinces are probably having a much easier time topping their budgets up to the 250.
Mm.
Like, we really went at it. I think we might have opened some doors for all of us, or down the road, I hope. Like, everybody was positive, but there was also the time factor. People were like, well, you need to buy when? Like we found out in May and we were shooting in September.
Mm-hmm.
We went at that for
But
a
we
while.
didn't actually get the money from Telefilm until late August, so that's something else to consider if you have like cash flow.
So did you have
issues.
interim financing, or did you, how did
We
you do
opted
that?
not because it's too expensive.
Yeah.
At this level
Yeah.
of budget, you don't have that money, right, to pay for that interest. So
We really,
There wasn't much you would have needed kind of beforehand anyway, until you had to pay your crew and rent your gear and
Yeah.
all
You're
that kind
right.
of thing. It might not have been too much
we didn't have
interim
really
financing
any.
needed.
Yeah, I mean, we funded the trailer
Yeah,
ourselves,
that's
and like it wasn't much. But what is great is that Telefilm gives you 80% right at the beginning,
Yeah.
which isn't typical. Usually you get like 45, and then there's another milestone, and so you do really need interim financing when there's more money on the line. But you'll get 80%, and then how we're making it work is that you can ask for a grace on the final 20% for. You can get 10% of
and
it.
splitting.
So what's the 20% on delivery?
We're going to, because we're given a tip on this, we're going to look at trying to stretch that out and get 10% in delivery and get another 10 a little earlier. We don't need it yet, but at some point maybe, like our delivery will be sometime, they actually, according to our contracts, don't need it till July. We probably will provide it before that because we'd like to have it for festivals done by May.
The other thing is, Telefilm is awesome. Like, you call them anytime with any questions. Don't be intimidated at all. Like, they are there to help. So they will. It's not like a big wall of like, oh no, what if I ask a question, they're going to take my money away. Like I call them going, I lost my main star. They're like, make your movie. So they're very supportive, and they're full of great information. So anytime you're concerned, just pick up the phone and call, and they'll help you. And they're happy to, that's their job.
So do you think having a star was key in them choosing you guys? Or?
That's a good question. I don't think necessarily. I don't
It
think
added,
hurt our
like a
application.
boon to our marketing plan. But I don't think it's necessary. I mean, I think certainly if you have a project where you can afford one, then it's going to help your marketing plan. And this year is a the slant is more on marketing, so it could be more important this year, I don't know.
So you recommend rewriting, like, you're gonna get Tom Cruise, don't get him later,
Recommend
it's just, oops.
Yeah, go make your movie, yeah. No,
He said yes.
another mistake we made was we thought, and it was an honest mistake because we went and researched information about the union and how it works, and we found information and it was exactly what we wanted to hear, and we were like, great, everything's good, and then we proceeded, and then a week before shooting it came to our attention that that's the rules for BC and not for the rest of the country. So if you do want to have a star who's an actor member, you have to do it under what's called an AIP, which is like the lowest possible budget for an ACTRA project. And what that means is that every actor on the project, whether they're actor or not, have to be paid actor wages.
So the ACTRA ultra low budget wage,
Yeah.
which is still,
Yeah,
for us, we had a lot of actors in our
and
project,
we had so many actors that it just like
it just
it
made us
flew
have
out of the
to
water.
tell John at Dunsworth, and we had another person in the cast who was actor too, who was concerned about that, and we had to change that casting. And like we were going down the road and communicating with this person from BC, and it's sort of not their fault either, but they weren't going, you're from PEI, so we're telling you the wrong information. We were just talking. Anyway, it happened, and then we had to shift gears. But
Is it because it's a feature? Because can't you get away with that in shorts?
I don't know how Milla did it because she
I'm
hired
not
Jeremy,
sure.
but I think she somehow that was considered a student film,
Oh.
and so ACTRA has a different attitude when it
Okay.
comes to student films.
I thought that you could get pardons from ACTRA.
Yeah, I don't understand
Weird.
their
Okay. Must have
line
changed.
of thinking. And I spent, again, like in times when I should have been really focusing on preparing for our project, I was like on the phone being
Yeah.
a lawyer with
Yeah.
with the union and so that's something too, if you're, the casting is so important and if you actually are really hoping to cast actor, you have to consider that in the budget, that keep your cast small and do your research as to what actor's gonna expect from you, because there's surprises, like things like the amount of money you're gonna spend on their wages, you have to have that amount of money sitting, floating in, there's a word for it, which I forget right now. And then once those actors have been paid, so you have to have the money there and here at the same time, and once they've been paid, they call their union and say, yeah, my check cashed, and then actor lets you have this money back.
Wow.
So it impacts on your cash flow big time.
Wow.
so it's really challenging to go through the process and get that. Like, if you've got a very small cast, it might work. It was never going to work for us. Like, we quickly figured out we've got to shift gears here.
What was your cast? How many? Like principal?
Well, there was like
extras?
25 roles, and then that spoke, and then there was probably about, at least 25 extras. So
Whoa.
it was
I
nuts.
think we
I
had
can't wait to see this movie.
I think we had
It's gonna be like Blues Brothers.
66. Yeah, it's a little crazy. But there's a lot of little parts people coming and going. But our main company, our lead guy, Dylan Cooperman, he's in every scene except for, I think, 2 scenes. Like, we needed him all the time. That was interesting. Dylan was awesome to work with, just a quick note. But, like, think about your expectations of who you're working with and what you think they're capable of. And he totally shined and came through. But I could
It
see
was
on day
tiring.
3,
Yeah.
he was kind of like, holy shit.
Day 3.
Like,
Yeah.
well, there's 13 days, and
And some
he's
of them were long.
good, but he's not.
and
He didn't have
some of
feature
them
film
weren't,
experience. One of them
some of them were 12 hours, but
How old's he?
well, I don't know if
Maybe
you want
30s?
to know that.
well, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I think, but yeah, no,
He's
but
no
also
spring chicken.
he's excellent. But he'd never done this before, and even it doesn't matter who you are. Like it's a long chew to do it. Now maybe you've got a thing where you don't need an actor all the time that much, but that's how our thing turned out. So.
And we sometimes forgot to have a chair for him and things like that, so we really, bailed in a lot of ways for making his how hard he was gonna have to work a little easier, because we're just so, running at the speed of light and thinking about 5,000 things at once, you just forget things like, oh, that location doesn't have a comfy chair you can sit in while he's waiting.
So did you guys do 12-hour days?
And then a couple of days went longer than that, of course. But we managed to, finish our last day. We weren't into overtime, so. I was
We
proud
have
of that.
kids in ours,
Yeah, we had
So-
some too.
so they can only work 8-hour days. There's
Yeah.
actually specific rules for that, right? Do you know what they are?
Yeah, I mean,
Unions
you can
are-
look, there's ACTRA rules for that.
Yeah.
But you should probably respect them whether you do it.
Well, no,
actively
I
or
know.
not.
I mean, I can't see a kid at 8 hours being able to act.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
They'd be like,
Even that's gonna be
I think
long.
Yeah.
I remember when we did the trailer, the kids couldn't act for more than 4 hours at a time
yeah,
without having a 2-hour break.
yeah. When we did just run, and they were older too. They were losing it after a couple hours.
So, like, what's really good is in your pitch, address it head on. You know?
Yeah.
Like, we have kids, we know that it's an issue, so this is how we're gonna deal with it.
Yeah.
You know, so that you don't give the jury any room to doubt anything.
Right.
Okay, so we had submission and then our sort of like shooting process, and then now we're in post. And I kind of wish we had done more tests. You know, we did tests. We were like, okay, yeah, that's all synced. It's gonna work. And then now we're finding things that didn't. So that aren't unsolvable, but that just
What do you
create
mean?
more
They're
headaches.
just adding time. Well,
Just like the tech, getting all the tech to marry. Like we're working
telling
on
your
two cameras at the same
time
time.
code to
Okay,
sync.
during
We're
shoot-
having some
during
trouble
shoot.
with that, so now we're
Getting
going.
our computer to love the technology format as it's coming through, like just
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. Like we had lots of time while we were waiting to find out if we got the money, where we could have just been, testing that kind of stuff out and really working out the kinks of how's post gonna work, pre-post.
We're working those things out now. The biggest thing it's doing, it's not really actually truly, maybe a little bit, but it's not really costing us
Yeah,
too much
that's right.
money. It's more
It's just
time.
headache,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
And
You know-
those might be unavoidable things, like that's easy to see in hindsight, but that's something that might be tough to,
if you're doing something you've never
there's gotta
done.
be glitches
Yeah,
somewhere
so
in
you
the
have to
process.
factor it in, like
Yeah.
factor pad
Mm.
for time and pad for money that have like things that are new and unknown and that kind of stuff.
Are you gonna have to do any ADR? Did you do all sound on?
I think we are gonna have to. do that.
Likely, out of our sound
We
guy
have-
feels we likely will have to. We're not at the point yet where we know.
I see,
We're
okay.
in the pretty early editing stages, but
Right.
we're hitting it pretty hard now for
Right.
the next month or so.
So did you shoot it like you were gonna keep all that sound?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we used the labs on everybody, and then we had a boom. So that's how we did it. We used all the sound came from the iMac, and it worked out well.
But as local filmmakers, you should know that for some reason your labs are gonna melt into a pile of soup working in the Hong College room. So you don't get
We think we're
your
going to have ADR
signal.
levels.
Yeah, your signal
So
doesn't work.
what building?
We were
The main
in,
one?
One of the new ones,
yeah.
just in there, but we had real troubles, and we were right there in the day. There was no.
Were you
Rescheduling
working with
that.
Adam on that day?
Yeah.
Okay, because he's the only one that seems to be able to handle those labs.
Yeah,
Oh, and he was such a trooper. He was trying so hard, and you could just see him melting into a pile of soup. But there's something, there's some sort of, kind of like demonic entity that lives in the thickness of that concrete that doesn't allow that technology.
It's probably one of those green things in there giving off some vibrations or something.
but it creates challenges, right? Like all those things that Jeremy Larder and them, and he's in Toronto, so we'll have to get him to do it there or come here if
Right.
we have to do it, which we probably will have to do it. So there's, this is why you have contingency, I guess. Like we put probably, I can't remember what or where it sat, something maybe for ADR, but we'll probably end up spending more than that, likely. Most of our sounds really actually very good. I haven't looked at those scenes carefully yet, so I don't know. But he feels that they're nice. That's gonna be great.
So would there be value in having someone who's actually watching all the footage and then starting the editing process the minute you start shooting?
I think so.
Yeah.
Because if you have any sort of like technical error or something gets misfiled or whatever that comes along, you would be catching it when you still have a chance.
So
to
now
fix
you're
it.
gonna get all that.
Could you have done that with the footage that you were getting? Does it
Yeah,
have to
that
get
would've
transferred and stuff?
That would have been challenging. Because
Because it has to get
we got our proxy
transcribed.
files done later.
Right.
Yeah, which I was going to do myself and started down that road with all the direction for the postman, and it just ended up being a thing where it's going to them at the end, if I don't get this right, there's so many. The other problem was on all the computers I was trying it on, it was just like I was doing, I don't know, a minute of footage would take like 25 minutes to convert that into a proxy file, and they're like, oh, we could do that in 10 seconds, a minute. And they said, if you give it 2 weeks, mail it to us on Friday, we'll have it back to you on Tuesday. We're like, let's do that.
Yeah,
So-
so sometimes it's worth spending the money,
You know.
that you didn't budget for, just to like save your headache.
But that, we never thought about that in post, or our budgeting stage. There's all those, that was one of the things, there's all these little things that come up that, and they will for all of you, but to try to figure out what they all might be before you get surprised by them, because you don't want to be so surprised, it's like, oh, that's all my contingency, that's all my producer fees, now it's, you know, the director fees, now who's left, like, you know, here's the half.
How much
Yeah,
did you have to, or did you defer by choice, I guess?
Oh, that's something that Telefilm stated very clearly, when the first time they introduced the pilot fund, was that they didn't want to see a lot of deferrals. They wanted to see that you were getting paid enough that you could survive to, or, which we didn't, we didn't budget ourselves that kind of like survival wage, but they didn't want to see deferrals, like the whole thing is funded on no one gets paid, like they wanted to see you pay yourself for your job. So for us, that was like basically, okay, this is the line item that says contingency, and then our wage is the
That might be.
pad for the contingency.
Yeah.
But that was in your head.
Yes, we didn't say
No,
extra
no,
contingency.
we don't,
And-
yeah.
And our contingency line, maybe it should have been higher, it was probably somewhere around 6 or 7%, maybe, I think. But 10 seems reasonable, if you can squeeze that and make the rest of your budget work. They'd probably go, oh, that seems reasonable. Anyway, we squeaked through with ours somehow, but
And I think it totally depends on your project. Like what happened with us is our project is called Cooperman, and somehow the E&O people suddenly got nervous because DC is so litigious that was too close to Superman. And we were like, okay, first of all, how can you you don't have any right over a person's last name. It's not even pronounced the same. It's not Cooperman, it's Cooperman. And it's said repeatedly. And we had to, suddenly we had this like legal bill going with this as we made our, and we're shooting and we're like, we can't not have E&O.
But didn't you say autocorrect changed Cooperman to Superman once?
Oh,
Didn't that
yeah, it
happen?
does.
So that'd be a pretty good argument.
Yeah. So,
There
and
is a
we had
connection.
ultimately, they said we can only change it, we can only do this if you'll change the way it's spelled. And I'm like, okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well,
and we had to
But,
change our logo too.
Things
We
like,
ripped off
yeah.
the original Superman logo, which, okay, but then when we changed it to
I'll give it that.
when we changed it to the double O's, we at one point had maintained that logo and looked at it, and then they were like, hey, you should change the logo
Yeah.
more. So we sort of kept that Superman K and changed the rest of it, and everybody was happy at that point. But
It's a super
I was dealing with all that while we were shooting and not expecting that at all. And I don't know, I'm just sort of an extra sort of, PA or something on the set. Like there was plenty for me to do, and it was always different every day. But a couple of days in the middle of the shoot, it was all of it intensively dealing with this. And because we had a shoot scene coming up where we see the outside of the store and it says Cooperman Comics, and Quick Copy's waiting to print this thing, and like we need to shoot on Tuesday, and it's Friday morning, and I just keep calling and pushing them, and we've been at this for weeks, and we were going to postpone that shoot day because there's a whole bunch of branding on a t-shirt he wears and on the sign and that, so they ended up telling us that Friday afternoon, and I called Quick Copy and said print it, and I had it like Monday afternoon, and we shot it on Tuesday. But those were the reasons that we needed to solve that during the shoot.
So how much did you allot and how much did you pay for E&O and for lawyers?
Well, we had a quote that we had researched at the beginning when we were putting together our budget that like Fraser and Hoyt offers a special deal for award-winning funds. So like if you win the CBC 321 award or the Telefilm Microbudget award, you can go to them and say, give us the special deal. And so that was what we thought that's what we had budgeted. But then once this whole thing became complicated, the company
They dropped us.
dropped us, and then the company that took us on said, well,
This is what you're
this
getting
is what you're paying.
for
so
this
it was
time.
like,
And so we wanted
Oh,
to
we have no negotiation here, like we just have to pay.
And that ended up being about 3 or 4 times as much as we were gonna pay.
Right.
So if, if things go as planned, E&O is, I can't remember the number, but it's like,
It's
you know,
$1,350.
no, it's more than that.
Not
What
for
was
a
around-
feature. It's like
Yeah, it's like
$1,700 for a
$3,000 or
short,
something.
right?
It was $1,350 on the CBC.
Yeah,
$321.
so it's, I think
Maybe
it
I'm
was more
thinking
like
of-
$4,000 or $3,000 or something.
Yeah, okay, I'm confusing that. Okay, so it was around 3. I think what we ended up paying, we're gonna pay is 5 or so with
With the
these
switchover.
guys who go,
Yeah.
we don't offer special deals and this is what you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Is there
Plus-
another place that does special deals?
There was another guy, Paul, what's Paul's last name?
What was? I can't remember right
Yeah, I'm not sure. When Walter Forsythe gave his
Yeah.
presentation, he mentioned this guy, Prime, is that it?
now. It's called
Can't remember.
Prime, yeah.
Okay.
So we have it in the iMac archives, but we had a hard time getting in touch with him. Like he wouldn't, he wasn't the easiest to pin down when he really needed an answer. So I can't remember who we were with now.
We were with a company out of LA called ALLINZ.
Another upfront cost that is worthwhile to, but you have to be careful of how much, is depending on your project. If you have characters that have first and last names, those all have to be cleared by a title clearinghouse. And
It just has to be said. They
Yeah.
obviously have first and last names, but
Yeah,
if
if
only
it's
the
said.
first name is said, does that, you think that would be okay?
No,
if
that'd
only
be
the
fine.
first name is said, yes, but if their first and last name are seen on a desk or on a door, or
Mailbox.
if they're said by a character,
Wow.
or even like one character
Kids
says,
and all that.
this
We-
is all like
we
learning
didn't know
curve
till
stuff,
later.
right? Like, you had
Wow.
no idea, right? And the other thing is that like Telefilm is super helpful, but they don't like they're not
Yeah.
calling you going, and how's this? Have you thought about this? So you are expected to pick all of this information up and learn. So it's a good idea to network with other producers who are more experienced in the region, and ask like, hey, could I pick your brain sometime? Can we go for a coffee? Or
There's that
do you
Deb
need any
Patch
help
book,
with
yeah.
your stuff so that I could ask you for some help with my stuff if it comes down the line? That people, there's lots of opportunities. Go to the Atlantic Film Festival. The producers of the region are just so lovely, so it's really worth doing networking so that you can help your mentorship side. And that's something else we put very clearly in our application process of like, these are our mentors and this is our support. They're not true exec producers, but if we need support from experienced producers, these are our people we're going to call.
Yeah, you're not allowed to actually put experienced executive producers on your project, I asked. She said mentoring is fine, but they cannot be, if they've done any kind of feature or even have too much experience, they don't want them on that project.
Do you remember the company that we used that did our clearances? They were great.
I was just trying to think about that, and
Okay,
they
so
were great. And that cost, that was a surprise cost, but in the end, I think it was maybe $350 or $4 for all of our names, and it's all the number of names you have to submit. So nothing extravagant, but we had to pay that. And you also have to be concerned about not just names of characters, but business
Businesses.
names. The Cooperman Comics, as well as we had the villain's business is called Troy Frizzle's Combat Arts and Real Estate, and we had to clear that. And I would have been surprised if somebody has that business.
So how do you search for that just to make sure that it's clearable? Because like Patty wrote a book, so the book has the characters' names already in it, and it's like Mackenzie House and.
Do you know if she searched for them? And I'm not sure.
I don't
it's that
think she
important-
did.
That important at that
it's
stage.
two different rules, right?
Yeah,
You can
yeah,
write a book and it's not an issue,
Yeah.
so she doesn't need to have it cleared.
Yeah.
But like if there exists a place called Mackenzie House, she
Yeah.
might have a problem.
Yeah,
so.
that's right. Yeah, maybe that, if someone finds it later on, then you could have a problem.
If you've got a business that kind of has an official name like that, or a bunch of them, you're going to have to do this. And probably 9 times out of 10, or like 10 times out of 10, you're going to be fine, but it's just something you're going to have to pay for. And it's not that much. And if people want to know, email me, but we can remember who this person was. But they were awesome.
They were very
helpful.
lovely and helpful and accommodating
Eastern
to our
Script,
microbudget.
maybe? I think.
Something Eastern.
I think it was Toronto or Hamilton.
then the other thing is like this is the mystery of it all. You know, like in our talking with the lawyer about all our headaches, he said, "Well, I was working for a film, and they wanted to have a character named Dr. Deepak Chopra, and we won." And I was just like, "Okay, so why am I having to get Cooperman's or like Troy Frizzle's combat arts and real estate cleared, and you can use Dr. Deepak Chopra but basically you have to give the money to the clearance house and then the lawyer and then all this bakshish gets paid and then it's okay. I don't know. It's a great mystery.
But we weren't going to get E&O unless we did
But you need
clearances.
E&O,
So
you-
we were like, oh, we have
Yeah.
to do this now, so we did it.
I think that has something to do with if they're a public persona, like if they're a well-known person, that you can use it in, because they're already
In the
public. I
but
think that's
the
what that is.
no, he said that it was the whole point was that it was like just because there is a Dr. Deepak Chopra, it doesn't mean that this character whose name there are other people named Deepak Chopra and they might be a doctor. I don't know.
So they didn't have to check.
It was a mystery. No, they did have to check and they had to hire him and he did the fight and they won.
Oh, right, okay.
So
We had to change Mike Holmes in the Angora napkin. We had to change. Troy had to actually physically change the character because it was too close to Mike Holmes,
right. And he's such an icon.
and they didn't want to get sued. So
He might come and knock the door down that.
that's so funny.
Okay, so I guess that's probably it, unless you guys have any like more detailed questions pertaining to your specific ideas or projects that you might want to throw out there.
When you talked about like we have to pay every actor a certain amount, does that extend to extras?
No, it's based on lines. So if you have 5 lines or under, it's $150 a day or something like that, $180 a day.
Okay.
And then if you have 5 lines or more, then it's $280 or something, $250 or something like that.
All right.
Plus, you have to follow all the actual rules. So that means like certain breaks at certain times, certain meals at certain times, certain bonuses if you go over 8 hours, and so it seems like $280 a day, that's not so bad. But then really, to work with ACTRA, you've got to
Just
have
hidden.
a lot more. You've got to have things like first aid person on set, and like there's added costs that brings.
Okay.
Is it like ridiculous to ask what if you're going with mostly professional actors?
It's my favorite thing. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'd love to have worked with John Dunsworth and Jeremy, and I think they're fantastic, but there is like a beautiful kind of just raw beauty of working with non-actors that is my preference, actually.
No, but I mean like in the process of applying and everything, do you think the jury would be like, they don't have anyone with names or they don't have anyone not?
I don't know for microbudget. Doesn't
Yeah,
seem.
I think what I did was we goosed the, that we have a thriving digital media scene here, that we have actors who have a lot of experience doing web series, and so we made them seem like they were all that, which they are.
We're going to use them. They will help us to share their networks and mention this on their sites that are popular, and like those people exist. Like it's
But also like say Matt, who's a total first time actor. Well, yeah, but he's in a comedy band that has made a music video and has that experience. So like if they're goose whatever experience they have, that makes it sound like they can handle it. Or if they don't have any, goose why that's great. Like if it suits this particular character who's like a waif like girl who doesn't speak. Whatever. Like,
Or you can show them off in the trailer. I mean, if you can show off their acting capabilities in the trailer, you won't even really need to say, you know what I mean? Like,
I don't think the juries are going to scrutinize the projects that they're looking at the broad strokes. They're not, like if there's something that glares out to them of like, oh, like there's a whole cast of kids and they didn't do a trailer. How are they going to handle that? We're not sure if they've got kids who can do these roles. Then that's something. But you don't have to have a cast when you're submitting. Like you can just say, from my wealth of experienced community actors, I know I can cast this.
But if you've got a popular actors well known somehow, either through the actor thing or not, like say that. But I think now, having come through it, like when I was at the stage you guys are at, I was going, how important are these things? But I really think it's important. Like your marketing's hugely important, and make sure that your I's are crossed and T's and stuff on the budget, and
Your eyes are crossed.
Your eyes are crossed.
And then
Our eyes crossed
your
a
video
lot.
pitch, yeah, your video pitch. But like I was like, oh, they're gonna. It just we were like, it seems like everything that's moving, and maybe this will change when we try to get it to broadcast later. They might just go, hey, we would have taken you if you did shoot in the red. But I don't think like the camera and the cameo stars are nearly as important as I thought they were when I was at the application stage. I think it's way more important, the marketing thing, and just to have a good story and to know your story and to pitch it well. And like if you do a trailer, if you're using an experienced actor, just make them look as good as you can. Like we did that, and like Dylan's going to be awesome. He was awesome. He's going to be great in the movie. When we shot it the first time around 2 years ago, and then we recut that trailer, like we were all rushed. But in the editing process, and all editors know this, you can make everything better than it was. But we were able to create something the second time around that was pretty good, and I think they probably went, oh, he could handle this. Our first trailer, I think it had more to do with me as an editor, but the pace of it and everything else, it didn't showcase everybody as strong as it could have. So, I mean, make your trailer. It doesn't have to be long. Just make it kind of.
I asked that too. That was a question because trailer typically means 2 to 3 minutes, right? Because they're quite long in the theater. And I said, could we like do a teaser that would be 10 to 30 seconds long? And she said, well, you're not bound to send in visuals like that. But she said, think of a proposal that goes in, and you're the jury, and you get something visual and you get something that's not visual. What feels stronger, right? So teaser, 10-second teaser that gives you the vibe of the film is just as powerful as a 2 to 3 minute.
I'm sure it's
trailer.
quality over quantity for that.
Yeah.
If you can make a better, shorter one.
Yeah.
If you do
But
it
I
for
think
its
it's
quality.
actually what it is like if you're saying, give me $120,000 so I can make my movie, and you don't go through the steps of just putting something on video, it's sort of like if I was on that jury, I'd be like, okay, they didn't have video. Okay, I'm looking at these guys, like you're
Even though
in the
it's
business
just
of making
suggested
something,
and
right?
not a
So make
requirement.
something visual, even if it is low production value, it shows that you mean it,
And short, like every minute's a lot of work. Like ours was probably about a minute and a half, a minute 45 maybe, I can't recall. But like you're right, most trailers nowadays are 2:30 to up to probably nearly
Like
5
the whole
minutes.
film.
Your trailer must have been good. I'm assuming your trailer was good.
Our trailer was low production values, but it gave the basic idea of the kind of like the vibe of the humor.
But if it was low production value though, was it good? Like was it enticing? Was it engaging? Was it something they'd say, this has a good story, this is a good story?
It said,
what
I
mean?
would say, like it looked kind of like not super professional, but it did look like we knew our world. We showed you the world immediately. You got the sense of where the humor could lead, and then we kind of like turned it on its butt at the end and went, and there's a little bit of crazy.
Oh, here's a surprise scene. Like we
Yeah.
sort of said, it's going to be coming this, and then we went
we
into
had
a
a little
little brief
epilogue.
scene at the end, which we actually shot the second time around. The front part of the trailer we shot the year before, and we recut that. But when we redid it, we put some bands are happy to help, but we put some funky music under it, and local stuff, and we had a bit of supers that were comic book style, and you just sort of go, oh, I mean, the movie's not going to be all filled with people and panels like the Hulk movie, and we didn't go nuts, but we sort of suggested, we did sort of a bit of a tip our hat and try to give it a bit of style in terms of the amount of time and resources we had to do that. Like we shot at the EX1.
Yeah, so it didn't look
Yeah, yeah.
super
We didn't even use the F3,
snazzo,
the
right?
best camera.
And there wasn't any major camera moves or, but it kind of just said, this is our demographic, this is the world, and this is the bent of the humor. And I think that's enough. Like, I think everyone that I've talked to here and locally is feeling intimidated about the trailer, and I would say, don't worry about it. Like, even if it's just like copy and black screen, and you just set the tone of what your world is going to be like, it's, you've at least shown I can clip clips together, and I took the time to do it.
Well, I never even thought of that. Like they do that for book trailers. Like to get the vibe of the book, you'll see like they'll just pull, like Patty just pulled pictures from the internet, and then I did just moves on them, and we had like key
Yeah.
dialogue from the story just to give the sense of what the story was about.
Yeah, just to show that you
I never
mean
thought
it.
of that.
You
Yeah.
know, like that you mean it about like I am a filmmaker, I can make a film.
Right.
You know?
A lot of Kickstarter film projects that are trying to make features, fun features, have used what's called a lookbook, and it's like a short 2 to 3 minute style summary of your movie. So what they do is they take existing movies and chop them up, and that are like in the same tone or atmosphere or stories or acting that you're trying to achieve. So they'll edit together a sequence that's got very similar aesthetics to what your film hopes to be or wants to be, and then the filmmaker narrates on top, explaining the images we're seeing and how it relates to their project. Pretty effective.
It's in fact, it's interesting to me. Part of me goes, "Wow, I'm surprised that people have the confidence that everybody's going to be able to pull this off." It proves your chops maybe as an editor, but I go, you're kind of nicking things and without getting out there with the camera and showing people a shot you can do. I'm a little surprised that it's. Maybe I have to check it out.
It doesn't serve that purpose.
Yeah,
It's
saying,
for the
"This is
person that
what
knows
we're
they can't go out and get a really nice camera and go hire a filmmaking team to tell the story they want to tell. So instead of showing them something that looks like it's got no production values or really cheap, they're taking the works of professionals and applying it to their project. It's kind of neat, and a lot of people, funding agencies in the States are now requiring lookbooks.
Oh, wow.
Right. Okay, so it's really taken off.
So
Yeah.
another thing I would say is that the members of the jury are filmmakers, they are producers, they know our pain, they're Canadian producers. They know how hard it is. So they're gonna look past low production values and just see, oh, this is an engaging story, it has a demographic that they can reach.
The
And-
comedy and it was funny.
And the other members of the jury are people who are like film festival programmers, right? So they've seen everything and they are looking for something new. So like the jury is, are your people. So
What sort of relationship do you have with Telefilm as the movie shot? Are they hands-on through post-production?
no,
They've
not
been
at
very
all.
hands-on.
I mean, they have the right to, once we present them something, they have the right to say, no, that's terrible, and you've got to change this. And I really hope that they don't do that.
Mhm.
So we'll hit that when we do, if we do. But that's written into the contract that you sign to get the money. And they just have to do that to protect themselves in case you go out on a limb and suddenly it's a
Do you
board
know
movie or
at what
something.
stage they see it? Is it when you have like a rough cut, or is it like a finished cut?
Do we have to give them a rough cut and a fine cut, or I think it's just the fine cut?
Might be just. I'm not certain.
Yeah.
Fine cut is probably.
It's not important for this
I
meeting.
mean,
I'm
they
just
have the right
curious.
to change
Yeah.
your final cut. I think.
I'll check it out. If you want to, I'll send you a note on that. I
Yeah,
can't
do
remember.
you, does the filmmaker have final cut? That's the question I'm
No,
after.
you don't. They have the final say. But my take on it is that they're only reserving that for their protection in case you really go nuts and, have like too much death and carnage and nudity and pornography and you break the rules.
That's what Canadians want.
I think they,
That's what we're all
That's what everybody wants, that's what we're
I don't think they want to be hands-on in the creative anymore. I think they want to let
Yeah, probably
auteurs
not at the
write their stories, do their
$100,000 level.
stories.
They probably
Yeah.
don't care that
They
much.
want
No.
to emerge you as a filmmaker and basically, my take on it is that they want you to get your feet wet at this budget level, and then they want you to engage with them and move forward and ask for more money and keep making films and enter into the Canadian film scene and play by the telefilm rules. So instead of having you do your learning curve at the low budget level, they want us to do our learning curve at this level, so we learn how to engage with them, we learn the expectations of the industry, and with a low risk for them. And then they, honestly, I think they really would like to see, people move from micro budget to low budget to, however much budget you can get to make a
So
Canadian film.
do you feel that you have to be transparent with every decision you make with Telefilm? Like when you lost John Dunsworth,
Yeah, I
And you
had
had to
to,
call?
that's also written into the contract. Any major change of like any key,
Yeah.
you have to report it to them. And I thought I was like ready for like,
There were
does
nervous
this
to call,
mean the
yeah.
end? Does this mean now our marketing plan is shot and you aren't interested and this money is getting pulled? And they weren't at all that way. They were like, what's your plan? And I said, okay, well, this is my plan, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, great, make your movie. We want to help you emerge as a filmmaker.
And is it one contact that you deal with, or is it like?
There's a local, Patricia Boot is the sort of the localist.
Yeah.
And so we would deal with her a little bit, and then sometimes it would bump to Anne Frank, who runs the whole program. She was based in Toronto, I think.
Those were the initial people we dealt with, and I can't say enough about either of them. Like Anne's
Anne's
really at
really
the
nice.
head,
Yeah,
and you go,
they're
how do you
both
have time to be? They're just awesome people. And then once we finally got it, and then suddenly, and I don't know how this all works, but then our contact person was somebody else totally altogether, and that's been okay. So we've been shuffled around, but I think our contact person now, I should know her name, but she's out in BC. So
Yeah,
I
so
was
sort
kind
of
of like, well, okay,
There's
well, all right,
different people
fine.
to deal with
But
different
who do you
jobs.
deal with, Renee, when you?
And
Anne? The
Yeah,
one
so
from-
Anne's like running the overarching program, but in terms of doling out the money, and was this woman in BC's job. So it sort of depends what you need, who you're going to end up talking to.
They sort of assign you to a person at that point, and it won't necessarily be. You'll sort of get that relationship developed in the early stages with Patricia, but it's likely to change to somebody else later.
I can't remember, were there any surprises at that stage when we got shifted to the new person, and then, did she have expectations that we thought were new? That kind of rings a bell for me where we were like, what? We're supposed to do that? No one told us that.
I'm not sure. I know that the relationship kind of changed. She's just a different type of person, but she's good at what she does. Like with Patricia, I was hearing from her a lot, and with this new woman, it was kind of like it just takes a little longer to get an answer, but the answer's always there. So it's just different. But they're all pretty awesome. Like you said at the top of the thing, like they're just happy to answer your questions. But to get back to your thing about like filters or like your decisions at different times, like we told them about the change with that actor John there, of course, John Dunsworth, but like as I'm editing it, I'm not thinking about any of that stuff. Or like as we're shooting, we knew, they had the script, they knew what the story is about, like there's some scenes that could be controversial to some viewers, but in this day and age most people are kind of go okay. And I think they're going to be fine with it all. We just kind of went for it.
Yeah, I think they have to protect themselves legally, and when you sign the contract, there is a lot of that where you're like, oh.
We
But I don't
made a
think it's
list
actually gonna manifest.
of things we were concerned about in the contract, and then I brought them all up and emailed them back and forth, and then we had phone conversations. And one of them was, there was something, the way it was written made me go, it seems like they're saying they've got final say. And I was like, I don't know, that was a surprise. And so I talked to them about it, and we had a conversation, some emails to support that kind of made me very relaxed about that. They were like, we need to put that in here just so you don't end up doing this.
The other thing that I think
Something
we had
just
to
super
sign away
stupid,
was
crazy.
they have their hands on the sequel. Remember we raised that with them, and they're like, "Oh, we'll deal with that later," and we never
That's
really got
a
a
little
firm answer.
Gray,
Like,
yeah,
If
which
your
we're not.
if your project moved forward and
Yeah.
profited and had like what's that word?
Success?
Not success, but yeah, success.
It becomes
but
a
then
brand. So
also
we're,
like
I know the word you're
like additional products that continue to sell, ancillary, is that the word for it? They may or may not have their fingers on that, and I'm not sure, but we were just like, what are the chances of that? And if that happens, we'll deal with that then, and we just won the lottery to make a film, so we're gonna be happy and not get too fixated on the fine details.
What about lawyers? Like, how involved would you have been with a lawyer had the E&O insurance worked out for you? Do you think you'd need one at all?
We didn't budget a lot for lawyers because I thought, this isn't, we'll just need a little something for the, finalizing the contract or something, just make sure that we're, all good here. Wrong. You do need more than you want your budget to go to. It's sad because, you take, a lot of your money goes to wages, and that's good. I love that. But then a big chunk of it goes to people who feel like they don't actually do that much for, in the grand scheme of things for what happens
Right.
in the making of a movie. All this money goes to insurance, all this money goes to lawyers, and then, the gear houses and the post-production houses, those guys work. But, you do need and I remember Walter said he, on Everybody's Famous, they had probably a budget of, I don't know, 150 to 300,000 or something, and they spent like 7,500 on lawyers. And I remember at the time when he said this was our, this was our legal fee, I was like, what? And then now we know.
Large county. And like, the thing is, our lawyer guy, he's great, and I like to talk to him, and he tries to give me, be organized when you talk to them with emails or your phone conversations, and I've learned that, and usually I was mostly. But you're learning as you go, and some of what I learned I don't remember. But you're talking to them, and they're awesome, and like there's not a lot of small talk, but they're giving you the stuff, and they're super friendly, and you're like, hey, and then like a month passes, and then you get a bill and it says, talk to you for 53 minutes, this email, responding to this email, took me this much time. I'm not kidding. It was broken down like that, and you see this bill, like $50,000 or something, you're like, holy cow, let's only call them this month when we really need to. It's surprising.
So what do you estimate we should be budgeting for legal fees?
Well, I mean, we had a problem that we didn't see coming at all. You probably won't have those problems if you budget for, like, do your clearance ahead of time, and like, I think when it came to, like, Everybody's Famous had ACTRA involved, right? So if you're not involving ACTRA, then that's gonna be a lot less legal fees, because the ACTRA contracts and, issues
Entirely
make more law
sign-offs and
happen.
things.
So it's too hard to answer. It's based on, I would say that depends on every project and what your project requires. But don't just budget $1,000 like I did. That was dumb.
Another budget question. Paying crew, did everyone get paid the same, or did it fluctuate from?
We have
department to
this like a socialist approach, because at this budget level, come on, everybody's working really hard, and so we didn't do like a gradation based on, well, you're the this and you're the that. But that's just our policy. Jeff came from away, so we paid him a little bit more, but
And Dylan was involved
We
more
just-
days, we paid him a little bit more, but we had a day rate.
yeah,
Otherwise-
no, Dylan
Oh, so
deserved
it was like, yeah, of course.
deserved what he got, because he was working so hard.
And he's the star of your movie.
Yeah,
He provided
and
us
he
his
gave us
location,
the
we used it
location
for
and all that,
rehearsals,
so,
all kinds of stuff.
So you did,
We paid him
everyone
more.
was paid the same?
but everybody else,
More or less.
regardless of whether you're the PA or.
And then and we told people, and we tried to estimate this to the best of our abilities, and some days there might have been the occasional day that was like 11 hours, or maybe 10 and a half, very few. And then there were 12-hour days, the majority of them were around that, 12 and a half, that's like an hour or 45 minutes off for your supper, and like half an hour, 45 minutes off for dinner. And then some days we went into like maybe a 16-hour day or something. Like we didn't get into these days like 17, 18, 19 hours, but we told people that, your days will kind of be this long. This is what we estimate. We were pretty close to what we thought they were going to be. Nobody seemed to be, so one day you're working longer for your wage than the next day, but people seem to be fine with it. I really felt.
So did you guys just pay for those 13 days? You didn't pay for rehearsals or anything, did you?
No.
No, there was a
We
bit
asked
of,
people to volunteer for that.
I mean, it's depending on the position, like our props, like our department, some people, there were a handful of people besides, a handful of people who got some payment that was happening the same as it would be, for Adam Grant and Post. Like there were a few people before we started
Right.
that kind of bled into
Because
the
their
production.
job was
They were
on-
working
yeah.
in
They
pre-production.
either only
but
worked
yeah.
there, or
Yeah.
there was somebody like Jenna helped us for a number of days doing some contracting and those types of things, and we just tied around for 4 days.
Right.
Some of that stuff happened beforehand. Some people were paid for a number of days beforehand, and then they were also our props person on the set for the 13 days. So it kind of
Mhm.
fluctuated.
So
But
how did you present that to people, or did you just say, this is our day rate? Hope you
Straight up.
Yeah.
We just
As
straight up.
clearly
Like,
as we
this is
You weren't like begging and going,
No,
I'm
like, this
sorry.
like we can't afford to pay you for rehearsals, we want you, if we need ADR, we want you to come back, like, inclusive to what you got paid.
Right.
and put
Yeah.
that in your contract.
Right.
So people, as long as you're really honest and upfront and it's all on paper and it's ever really clear, like unless we don't know and people are secretly hating us, it seemed like everyone was quite happy with that we were doing our best, like we are getting paid 10 cents an hour, but the But we did our best to pay everybody as respectfully as we could.
Mhm.
And, you know, like keep it from being like, oh, well, because you're handling the lighting, you know, you're all that and you're just the lowly runner, so you're down here. You know, we just opted for, let's just, everyone's amazing and let's just pay as much as we possibly can and then treat them nicely with food so that
coffee.
they will work long hours in the cold and wind.
We were inside mostly. Well, I mean, we shot.
And on our long days, we'd buy beer. That's something I wish I had budgeted for because it should be in every budget.
Beer.
That you need that beer fund to,
Put it under craft services.
reward when, like after a really long hard day where everyone was out in the wind and you know you're tired and you like, get all that gear loaded in. You know, we definitely had beer waiting, but we didn't budget for that, so that ate into the contingency again.
So like $85 in a couple days.
You need
That's what
that.
started it. You go down the slippery path. But I'm telling you, like,
But
it's,
just for
you
everybody
have
to
do it
have
all the
one
time,
beer
but it-
together or two, you know, it just so worth it to like the next day is going to be smooth sailing,
On,
no hard feelings.
I took advantage of Jeffrey on Just Passing Through. He's never produced anything before, and I've been on a few projects that had craft services and stuff. And about 2 or 3 days had gone by, and there was no coffee on set. I was like, Jeff,
Oh my
man, you got to do something about this. And so he went and he bought Starbucks for everyone, and that's like a shitload of money. And then the next day I was like, Jeff, where's the coffee, man? And so he went and did it again, and then I told him, I was like, maybe you should just get the keg thing, and so he started doing that. But then it was like, twice a day I'd be like, oh God,
Well, that was something we did. We talked to Starbucks as being like a whatever a cross partner. Yeah, so they contributed the coffee.
Oh wow, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
And that's good for morale too, and keeping everyone moving.
And then our guy, Robert, didn't have to worry about pairing it.
Yeah,
it was
took a
amazing
headache from
actually.
him. Yeah, and takes a headache from having to have a runner who's dealing with
Yeah.
getting people coffee.
Budget item, it's worth
Yeah.
checking into.
It's coffee and beer
ask.
are very important.
You probably won't get
And,
free beer anymore. We tried. We tried to make some relationships with the local guys. Maybe we didn't have enough time, but we ended up just buying our beer when we needed it.
Right.
Yeah,
But
did you
coffee's
do
more
product placements? Nobody drinking Starbucks coffee?
No,
No.
they'll get an ample credit in the credits.
Yeah, we didn't actually shoot people drinking Starbucks.
We didn't have permission for that, and that's another whole thing.
Oh, what about like behind the scenes stuff and promoting that online? How did you guys feel with that?
Well, we've got
Part of our
stuff
marketing
in Canada
strategy.
as part of our strategy, and we don't want to. Well, the priority right now is like cutting and moving, getting to the next stage. But then we're going to get into that, go down that road, and get our stuff out there. Like we got some good behind the scenes video with our EPK person, and a lot of great photographs, and so we've got some stuff we can explore how to use. One thing I did, I was watching the Trailer Park Boys new season. I wasn't actually watching the new season, but I was watching previews for the new season that they just did online. And what they did for the video stuff is they would follow Bubbles or somebody around who's very good at improvising, and the camera would just turn on. They'd follow him, and there weren't even jump cuts because he's just always saying something funny. And he's not. He's just like people were going Bubbles, and he's like shut up, and he's walking and going. "We're gonna push the scene." And like it was like 6 minutes of video, and the edit was like clack clack. And I said to our EPK person, shoot things like that. Like I don't want to spend. Like
Yes.
I was trying to think of
Yeah,
ways not to
don't
be
edit
spending
your
a ton of time as
stuff.
the editor because this is it's busy now and then it's done and then we can like take notes with Adam Glant and different people and get something awesome in the end. I'm hoping, but then once we get to the point where we want to get that stuff out, we were trying to think of easy ways. Like don't think of high production values with your. I don't think anybody is, but think of simple ways to fill that void because they just want.
So you guys are
content.
saving all that till you get closer to
Further
launch
along.
instead of keeping people engaged?
Yeah, and like we had hoped to be doing that all now, but the reality is that if you're doing that to the expense of the goodness of your movie, then
We thought
it's a
about
long time. You've got to keep your social media alive.
Yeah, it's tough work.
So we just opted for we did our initial when there was the initial excitement. We did our little gathering of crowd. People who are interested in government. I probably should be keeping the Facebook a little bit more fluid, but I'll get to that. But I think the idea now is that once we're closer to when we have actually things to say, like, okay, we just submitted to the film festivals we hope to premiere at, and here's then
Got all my proxy files today
start
from
it.
Postman.
Well, we could have said something that we considered it, but like once you open that,
I'd like it.
once you open that door, I don't know, we made a choice. At one point, I don't know if we got heavily into timelines with that type of stuff. We just said we're going to do it,
Yeah.
which might have been the smart way to do it, because we had originally at one point thought, well, while we're shooting this, this behind the scenes stuff, this can be coming out the days we're shooting. Hey, we're on a day, like that went through my head. We didn't do that. Now we've got that footage and we can kind of revisit it later, but once we were in production, we didn't have time for it.
Yeah.
Before
And
we started, we thought we
everyone
might.
says to do that, like to get your whole crew tweeting and get everyone posting and get all that social media happening while you're shooting. But then there's this big death period, right? While
And
you're
still,
waiting.
and the other thing is really, what is that gonna do for you? Because there's gonna be a long lull, so really.
Exactly.
Yeah, we've come to
So,
that realization.
I
Useless
think
energy,
we're
sure.
just saving
Yeah.
what we've got for once we're like, hey, we're premiering at such and such
Probably a
festival,
better idea.
and then then we start to keep it alive, and then you got to keep it alive for a 2-year arc
Yeah.
because by the time it goes through the film festival circuits, and then it's like we're doing our special screenings at Comic Cons and all that, and then there's broadcast. Like for that, the whole arc of the life of the film, you got to have social media happening every day. So
Yeah.
wow.
But you can always go out and shoot more things. Like we're not going to go nuts here, but like already we're like, well, once we get into the stage where like Adam Glant's working on it, we're over and we're going, hey Adam, how's it going today? What's this like? And like I can talk about it, I guess, as an editor. But there's things we can do down the road, and then if we're at a convention, we've got the little phone. We're like, here we are at the thing, and like you can add to it
Yeah,
as you
more
go.
will come.
But we did get a big chunk while we shot, and do that. Like put a budget item in for that, and like try to get somebody doing that's committed to that, because if you get somebody and the cool thing too is to get somebody who's kind of either done it before or shares your kind of brainwave of what you're after, and then you don't have to direct them or think about it. And then when I looked at what we got back, I wasn't even paying attention heavily to what Tess was doing while we got, and I'm looking at all these photos and videos, I'm like, this is awesome. This is
But we
great.
really we directed her
Before,
and the actors.
yeah.
Everyone got directed of like this is what we're looking for from the EPK, and then they just got
we just let them go.
sent them off on it. And so actors are sitting around in costume waiting. Perfect time to be getting value added content, right?
Mhm.
Okay. Oh, the one other thing I would say is that we wanted to have interns, and I wished we had more interns. It was really hard to find interns that were like, we had lots of people who were interested in being interns, but they were like, oh, I can do like Saturday afternoon and then Wednesday nights, and and we just like said, you know what, if you can't commit to the whole thing, sorry. So I would say like really hustle, try to see if you can find some interns, because there are people out there who are willing to work for free just to learn. So that's a place where you can have added bodies,
And then if you
but still keep your long extra days.
Yeah, and if you're the producer on the set, then you're running around anyway, but it might be a little less running around too. For me, I was like, we had our PA and those
Or there
people,
might
but
be more babysitting. It's a kind of it's a risky. You have to choose your interns really carefully too, right?
this is in part maybe the submission doesn't require this, but I mean, we've said this before, or I haven't. Like this is the time where you have the ability to go, here's who's I'm going to work with in this project. That's so important to us. Like it's just like, rather than rushing, think about it early, even if it doesn't have to go into the application, but you're putting together a team that all has to get along. It's a lot of people. You don't have to know all of them. There's lots of people we hired that we didn't know before we worked with them. They came recommended by other people perhaps. But
think about your casting. Think about
in that too.
like how are you going to cast something if you have like say if you have kids or some sort of ethnic diversity with a very specific acting requirement. Can you find that here? If you can't, how are you going to find it? Maybe it's better to just like look at what's here and then go, I like that person and their talents. I'm going to create my project around that. Get the permission if they want to be part of it, and then like kind of speak. That's how we did it. Like we reverse engineered it instead of like creating something and then trying to fill it. We went, okay, what do we have? What suits the mandate of this fund? They want digitally savvy people who are gonna share in networks. Okay, let's make a story about a comic book guy. Hey, we know a guy who owns a comic book store. So, and we think he's a great actor and he's not featured enough. So perfect. If you can shape your story around our small pool here might help.
I know we also got slammed the first year because people didn't believe that we could do the special effects that were in the film for the price that Brian had set out. But Brian has years and years of visual effects underneath him, and he could have easily done it. It's like we put it in there, but they didn't believe us.
Right.
So what do you do about
So
something like
that's
that?
you address that kind of
Tough
thing in the video pitch head on. You go, I know you don't believe we can do this, but we can, and here's why.
Right.
And you know,
Yeah.
just give it like 12 seconds in the video pitch.
Show them an amazing
Yeah.
effect or a very good effect that they go, wow, that surprised
Yeah.
me, or because you know it, but like that's like you said, there's areas where they can find doubt. Like that's
No, I know, but even
because-
if you have like 8,000 pages of I did post, you know, on this, and I was the post producer on this, you know what I mean? It was
Yeah,
just
but they might watch your video pitch and go, how are they going to afford those effects, and then not even continue to look at your package.
right, yeah, yeah.
So your video pitch, I think, is key, and
Yeah.
you've got to exonerate all doubt there, and then back it up with your package.
Yeah.
effects movies are tough because it's become easier and easier to do that to make them look okay or pretty
Yeah.
good. But the truth is, you know, none of us are going to be doing effects that look
Well, they were
like the
just-
Spielberg
it was
movie
like
or
2
something,
or
right?
3.
Like they're going to be,
Yeah.
we're going to make them as great as we can.
Yeah.
There's a ceiling here.
Yeah.
But we can do it.
Yeah.
But I think when people hear the word effects, they compare it to the, you know, the X-Men. They think effects,
Yeah.
and so that's a tougher pitch. But like Harmony said, I think the way to address it is
Yeah,
to
that
show
makes
them you
sense.
can do something.
We don't have effects in this one.
Oh, okay.
But we have kids. That's the scary part. I don't
Yeah,
know. if
and you don't have to
dogs.
cast them all. Just get one really great kid and showcase them doing something.
Yeah, I just wonder if that's gonna put like throw doubt on it because it's a lot of kids. Well, it's not a lot of kids. I mean, it's 2 main kids, right? And then there's a few scenes that have like 4 or 5 other kids, and we can cast them all. I don't have a problem casting them. It's just like do they?
What
you know,
age group are you looking for?
It's the girl that I'm looking at is 11, so it's in that prepubescent kind of.
That's the best age, but yeah, it's tough to.
I can cast it, no problem, man.
You have someone in mind.
Yeah, actually, I got a huge amount of new people in the last week. They just were like, "Yeah, my kid." I don't know how. I hit the right vein.
Sending you.
So and they were. I asked for digital auditions because the weather is so bad here in the winter. I gave up. I said, "Look, I have to cancel the audition. Please send me a video. Here's the script." And it worked out really well.
That's a good idea. We
Yeah.
read them. Huh?
So it's hard because you can't ask them to do it again, or you can't. But you could do a Skype. You could do a Skype.
But you know who you want to follow up with. You know?
Yeah. So, but I'm just wondering if juries look at films with kids with a.
I think that is one where you would like especially
where-
if you know, like depending on the script, like how many shooting days are the kids involved?
Yeah.
You know, like how
If
pivotal
my
are
kid
they
did a video
lead,
pitch.
You know, if they just have a sweet part, that's different than if they're carrying the whole film.
Yeah.
You know, so if they're carrying the whole film, I would definitely make sure that you have a trailer that shows
Yeah.
at least one
we are.
kid
Yeah.
doing something strong.
Well, we have the trailer we're doing has the girl doing a lot of lines and a lot of different emotions through it, just to show that she can handle that part.
Yeah.
And then there's
Ever
another.
come in your video pitch and tell her, I can handle this.
Well, I was gonna say maybe she could do the video pitch because I don't want to be on camera.
Well, I think it would be a mistake not to do it yourself.
Oh, I know.
You know, but maybe she could appear in it. But like, you gotta somehow introduce yourself to them. But yeah, maybe you could have her.
That's
do a
the thing that
call.
makes me that I get frustrated by is that like I hate speaking in public, and I lose all my words, right? And so especially when you're not doing it to somebody, you're doing it to a camera.
Yeah,
And
it is weird.
And
But think of it like the jury needs to believe that you can operate a ship.
Yeah, I know.
And like directing a film is speaking publicly, you know.
Right.
So you just gotta face it head on. And
The power of editing.
You're an editor. You
Power
can
of
say
editing.
it.
Honestly, like, you know, we're doing it.
you should see our outtakes.
And we're like,
so hilarious.
Brian just
they're
made us
endless,
a teleprompter
They're
too.
They're so filled with bad words. Anyway, but I mean, it's weird. It was weird for me too, and I'm actually honestly not very comfortable at that either. But like when we did the pitch, we just sort of shortened the segments and sort of did a back and forth. That helped, but you know,
So
it was
you
so much
scripted the
strong.
pitch.
Yeah, it was so much
It
stronger
had
for
to
having
be,
done
because
that.
you had such a short amount of
Didn't work
time
first
to
time.
say so much. So we would, this also helps, like, anytime you're pitching, this I feel is a tip. If you've got two people, it helps, because people just naturally get sick of hearing one person's voice and start to tune out. So you just like take turns, you know, someone says one point, then the
Yeah,
other
he's-
person says the other point, and that gives you some time to think about, okay, what am I saying next, okay? You know, or we actually shot it like, you know, just directly on me, directly on him, and I know what I'm gonna say, and I don't have to, it's scripted, but I'm gonna say it off the cuff, so it sounds natural, you know, I'm not like reading it from, you know. And I think that in the end, like, you know, I remember, my mother, it was up on the desktop, and my mother watched it out of curiosity, and she said, you know what, you guys come across as nice people who look like they can do it.
Mhm.
You know, and of course she's biased, but I think that does matter. I think like the jury does want to have a sense of like, who are these people? You know, you can't just like hide behind the camera. We want to see who you are if we're going to give you $120,000. Anyway, we should probably get back to her because she's watching the kid.
Well, thank you. That was
Thanks
great.
very much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and you know, like
Yeah,
if someone moves
informative.
forward, then you know, like we're happy to, you know, give any help we can along the way too.
Is there anything you regret or that you change? We can do it again?
Oh yeah, but you know.
No.
Yeah, I mean,